Perhaps the occupation of India by the British was the biggest colonial era crime, but that injustice tends to mask other ones. In the slew of news we read now about murder, we forget that pre-independence era India also had its fair share of unsolved mysteries. One institution in Madras stood tall: the Newington College, a college set up to civilize the Indian man, make him into a slave of Western etiquette, stamp out his cultural sensibilities, a college set up for India's princely youth. But something happened on the night of October 15th, 1919, that stamped out the college itself from the annals of Indian history. This is the story of that mysterious gunshot. This is the story of Clement De La Haye. Hi everyone, welcome to the Desi Crime Podcast, a show where we dive deep into some of the craziest cases from around South Asia. I'm your host Aryaan.
And I'm Aishwarya.
And the case that I have for you today is one of the oldest we have ever covered on our podcast, and one that continues to be shrouded in mystery. Aishwarya, you know the problems we face with old cases. There is barely any research or information available. Thankfully for this one, there were articles. The one good thing about the British was that they catalogued stuff.
There was enough documentation.
There was documentation, so I had to use some of that to pull up. But it's one of those cases that I'd never heard of. That tends to be most cases on Desi Crime. But one that when I started diving into it, I couldn't believe we have such a crime existing in pre-independence India.
And 1919 is like old. Sometimes in India, we
Proper
don't even have enough documentation available for like early 2000s cases. We're struggling. But 1919 is crazy.
It's crazy. You know what else is crazy?
How many of you just keep pestering us about the number of episodes you want us to produce every
guys,
week?
I mean, we're kids.
We're two people.
Two just cute kids. But we have caved to your demands. And this month, April, we have something very special for you. It's free, so don't worry about it. On Amazon Music, if you have a Prime membership, you can listen to all Desi Crime episodes like this one 2 days early. No Patreon, no
for
nothing.
For the rest of the world.
Yeah, you most likely do have a Prime membership. And if you don't, I
that's
don't know
just
what.
Weird.
That's
crazy.
That's silly. I mean, and Prime is not even sponsoring this, but that's just silly.
That is silly.
Why are you paying for delivery fees? But okay, if you do have Prime, you can download the Amazon Music app, find the Desi Crime Podcast, and all the episodes this month will be coming 2 days early, and you can enjoy that for free.
Before any other audio streaming platform available on Amazon Music.
To understand the significance of that fateful night, we must journey back nearly 2 decades to an era when the British Raj stood tall, its dominion over the Indian subcontinent seemingly eternal. The year is 1901. The Union Jack flutters from the grand facades of colonial buildings.
I
know what she's
tell
about to
our
say.
audience something.
I know what she's
Back
about to
when
say.
Aryaan and I were in high school and in college, we used to have like a silly little game going on. A grammar, trivia, English sort of GK kind of game.
For 5 years, we counted points every time we slipped up in any ambit of the English language. It can go from the pronunciation of accept versus accept.
The Monaco versus Monaco. Like the
which I have
of the
totally
country.
not done. Yeah. For what it's worth, by the end of the game, I won it by a huge point
sure.
margin. But this particular story,
this
continue.
story is that one random day, I was losing from Aryaan. And so I decided to kind of, pull a fast one on him, ask him like a GK question. And the question was, what's the name of the British flag? And I gave him 4 answers. 2 of them were like random things. 2 were actual names of flags, which is the Union Jack, which is the name of the British flag. And
the Star Spangled Banner.
The Old Glory, which is the American flag.
Star Spangled Banner. Is that the national anthem? See, there you go. That's where I play the
right? I am pretty sure that's the name of the national anthem. But so yeah, I've asked him this question, and he's listening to my 4 options, like trying to think which of them sound like the name of the British flag. The moment I say Union Jack, he chuckles a little bit, like there's a laugh on his face because he thinks he's so smart. He goes, "Ye to bilkul hi nahi hai." Like, how the hell could it be the Union Jack? That sounds so made up. And that expression on his face of it's totally not
contempt.
that. Like, I caught you. It's obviously not that option. It's completely wrong. And then the fact that it was, in fact, the Union Jack. Aryaan lost a point. But
The Union Jack flutters from the grand facades of the colonial buildings. The streets of Madras, one of the empire's prized jewels, hum with the rhythmic clip-clop of horse-drawn carriages. British officers clad in crisp white suits sip gin and tonic on their verandas, while their Indian servants move in practiced silence, never meeting their master's gaze. But beneath this facade of control, a storm is brewing. Whispers of resistance thread through the alleyways, exchanged in secret gatherings and immortalized in the speeches of emerging nationalist leaders. The Indian National Congress, the INC, has begun to call for self-rule, Swarajya, and the name of Mahatma Gandhi is spoken with quiet reverence. But still, the British remain confident. They understand that brute force alone cannot sustain their reign. True control must begin at the roots. The future rulers of India, the heirs to princely states and sprawling zamindari estates, must be molded, their loyalties carefully cultivated. If the next generation of India's aristocracy can be taught to think like the British, to see the empire not as an oppressor but as a benevolent guide, then the Raj will endure. And so in the heart of colonial Madras, a grand institution rises. Newington College. Newington College is no ordinary school. It does not open its doors to the common masses. It exists for one purpose: to shape the minds of India's aristocratic youth, to mold them into rulers who will uphold British rule rather than resist it. Nestled near Mount Road, the college stands as a fortress of imperial design, its red brick buildings and manicured gardens a reflection of English sensibilities. The architecture, inspired by the prestigious institutions of Britain, speaks of power and of permanence. Dressed in impeccably tailored uniforms, they walk the polished corridors lined with portraits of British dignitaries. Their days are meticulously structured, a mirror of life at elite British public schools like Eton or Harrow. Each morning begins with physical training: cricket, polo, and tennis, the favourite sport of the empire. Discipline is paramount. Lessons in literature and history follow, though history here is a carefully curated tale. The British are cast as saviors, their conquest framed as an act of benevolence rather than subjugation. Indian rulers who resisted colonial power are either vilified or erased, their legacies buried beneath pages of imperial triumph.
do we know at all what princely states had major princes, kings studying there?
Almost all of them. Because this was in Madras, so most of them were South Indian, southern states, but that's because of the geography. There were other colleges like Newington across India where there were kids from all kinds of princely states. But like we know, there were more princely states in the south than in the north.
Right.
So that is also a function of the preponderance of South Indian Maharajas being there. Political science lessons reinforce the structure of British administration, ensuring that when these young men inherit their estates, they will govern as the empire dictates. Law classes familiarize them with the legal systems of the Raj, training them not as challengers of authority, but as enforcers of colonial policy. Yet the most insidious lessons are not taught in classrooms. They seep in the daily life, into the very fabric of existence at Newington College. Here, every detail is engineered for one purpose: to reshape identity. The dining halls are a study in European refinement. Meals are served in courses. Students are drilled in British table manners. Their tutors quick to correct any lapse in etiquette. English is the only acceptable language. The mother tongues of these young men actively discouraged. To be caught speaking Tamil, Telugu or Hindi outside language classes invites swift punishment. The message is clear. To rule under the British, they must think, speak and behave as the British do. Religious instruction is yet another tool of influence. Christianity is subtly positioned as the faith of enlightenment, progress and modernity. Indian spiritual traditions are dismissed as relics of a backward past. Though the school does not enforce religious conversion, it cultivates an environment where Western ideals are associated with advancement and Indian traditions with stagnation. I know I might sound like a professor, but this history lesson is important because as ridiculous as this may seem to you and I, lo and behold, Newington College soon gains prestige. The elite of Indian society eagerly send their sons, knowing that a British-approved education secures their family standing within the colonial administration. By the early 20th century, it is the gold standard of aristocratic education in South India, producing a generation of rulers who govern with British efficiency, speak flawless English, and rarely question the authority of the Raj. Overseeing this grand social experiment are the British faculty and administrators. More than just educators, they are the architects of imperial loyalty. They design the curriculum with precision, ensuring that every subject, every lesson serves the larger purpose of reinforcing colonial dominance. Students are constantly reminded of their place in the grand order of the empire. Guest lectures from British officials further cement this ideology, exposing students to colonial administrators who regale them with tales of empire building, of the burden of civilizing India. The young princes listen. absorbing these narratives, internalizing them. To question is to invite consequences. And those who dare resist, who challenge authority or embrace nationalist ideas, face immediate repercussions: humiliation, isolation, and even expulsion. Their families are warned, their futures jeopardized, and so the conditioning continues. By the time they leave Newington College, these young men are no longer simply heirs to their estates. There's something more, something carefully crafted. A generation of rulers who, instead of dismantling British rule, uphold it. Who, instead of rallying their people against oppression, govern them in accordance with colonial law. They are the empire's most subtle, most effective weapon. Indians who believe in the British cause more fervently than the British itself. This notion of stamping out the Indianness of Indian is as old as colonization itself. In fact, in Lord Macaulay's famous Minute on Indian Education in 1835, that's 200 years ago, he proposed the creation of an elite group of Indians who would act as intermediaries between the British rulers and the general population. Quote, "We have to educate a people who cannot at present be educated by means of their mother tongue." End quote. And the tirade continues about the inferiority of the Oriental and how only the white master can save him. This environment, this belief system, while writing, reminded me of something I wrote years ago. Something I'd like to read out for all of you. It's a piece I call Sawdust. Polish my tongue with sandpaper till it becomes civilized. Purge me of my imperfections, the r's, ders, and the nods my masters wouldn't approve. So fix me, bathe my tongue in acid until it's smooth, smothered, no exaggerated consonants, no mispronounced vowels. Then take a towel and clean my tongue. It is fiendish and brown, it is dirty and uncivilized. Teach me how to be, how to talk, how to think. Teach me what to think. Teach me your tongue, O master. Cull my sound to calm my soul. There's a scent to my master's tongue that lingers on my lips, while my mother reeks of decay, and that stench embalms my body. So purge me, purify me, sanctify and civilize me. I choose my master over my mother. Round the edges on my letters, smoothen the crests on my character. Flatten me, make me like you, pale and polished. No more ders, r's and nods. Beat my tongue with a rod made of finesse and manners, punctuations and grammar. Beat my tongue till it is numb, till it is innocent enough to believe you. And then teach it your ways. Your movements and European kisses, the hugs and hidden hisses. And when my tongue fights back, deprive it of water, subject it to torture, and then finally, after its noisy protest, teach me the poise, the posture, the posturing, the white noise. And then butcher the fat off of my tongue so that I swivel words in your drivel, so that I form thoughts in your treble, and then I smell like you a little more, and my decaying mother chokes. I grab her by the neck and squeeze her neck so hard, and I see my mother's eyes shut as I strangle her, and she smiles. No more ders, r's, and nods. My tongue is now sawed. The turpentine burns but helps. The surgery left scars, but the doctor says the operation was successful. My tongue looks like my master's, and I look like the sawdust that remains. My mother was cremated on a pyre, yet the fire of indignation and the bastard sun shines bright. Her aged body, etched with lessons, love, and desire, now meandered through the ravines of Varanasi, where she can still be found, decaying. Ma becomes mom, Papa becomes dad, Madam becomes ma'am, and I became the master. So yeah, this whole account just reminded me of this something I wrote, something I felt an insecurity about, because at the end of the day, English is also my first language.
And the first time you narrated this poem to me, this was years ago, and I remember how moved I felt. I remember shortly after that, something in me had prompted me to buy Hindi books off of Amazon that I collected. I don't think I ever quite got down to reading them the way that I wanted to be able to. But this is such a moving poem, and it's just tying into the story of what we know so far.
ऐसा नहीं है कि हम हिंदी बोल नहीं सकते हैं. We can talk in Hindi. English just is one language which we have some modicum of mastery over, and you guys are there to listen to these stories. But I think it's good to remind yourself of the amount of internalized racism that we've been fed through the structures we see in our day-to-day lives, whether that be a Lord Mountbatten Road or whether that be our notions of fair skin. And it's important to be mindful of those while still operating in the real world, where of course
you need the language,
and those structures aren't going to disappear overnight.
No, but it was so maddening to my friends in the US when I told them that, firstly, it was crazy to them how well we all spoke English, all of us Indian students on campus. Secondly, it was maddening to them that we had the option of quitting studying Hindi as CBSE students in the 10th grade.
That's so crazy.
But we couldn't stop learning English.
And this applies to wherever you're. So if you're from South India, that could be, the Hindi could be Tamil for you. It's just your regional language being overlooked for the national language, quote unquote, which functionally is English.
Right.
But you and I weren't alone in feeling resentment towards these colonial forces. The youth of the time too revolted against this whitewashing, and some of those kids were studying at Newington College. Clement De La Haye, an English educator, arrived in India in the early 1900s, assigned as a tutor at the Newington College. His name appears in various historical references related to British-run institutions for aristocratic Indian youth. Though details of his personal life remain scarce, official records indicate that he was born into a middle-class British family with strong ties to education and administration. His father was reportedly a civil servant in the British government, which influenced Clement's own path toward colonial education. Educated at Keble College, Oxford, De La Haye excelled in classics, history, and philosophy, subjects that would later shape his own teaching methods. He was deeply interested in British governance and imperial administration, believing that a structured education could reinforce the empire's longevity. Upon graduating, he pursued a career in colonial education, seeing it as both a personal ambition and a duty to the crown. At Newington College, De La Haye's teaching philosophy was one of rigorous discipline. He prioritized English literature, British history, and Western sciences, ensuring that his students develop a worldview centered on the superiority of British governance. Mathematics and law also formed crucial parts of his curriculum, designed to prepare young rulers for managing estates under British legal frameworks. He strongly discouraged students from engaging too deeply in Indian political philosophy or traditional governance, favoring instead a structured approach that aligned with British administrative principles. His distaste for nationalist ideologies was apparent. He viewed the early stirrings of the independence movement as a direct threat to his life's work. He frowned upon regional languages and customs secondary to British traditions, believing that the path to true governance lies in the complete adoption of Western ideals. Long story short, he was a total Gora. Dude could have been cast in Lagan for all I know. His relationship with his students is complex, and this is where it gets interesting. While many admired his intelligence and dedication, others regarded him as a strict and emotionally distant figure, a racist also. When students in his classroom raised objections, the reprimand followed. Zero tolerance for dissent. The very embodiment of the system he so loved. Now, outside the classroom, De La Haye was an avid cricketer and equestrian, often organizing sporting events that mirror those of English boarding schools. Cricket, in particular, serves as an extension of his teaching, embodying the values of discipline, teamwork, and British identity. He enjoyed long horseback rides across the plains of Madras, and this personal life of his extends into his wife Dorothy and their infant son Anthony. The family lived in the Newington House premises itself. The year was 1919, and that batch of 1919 included several princes in its ranks. Take Kadambur, for example, or Singampatti, or Berikai, or even Urquhart Jr., and there were many others in this like Chundi and other princes from different states across India that studied in this batch, many of whom would become key figures in the events that followed. The household also included other members who were part of staff or teachers, including Harriet, Punnaswamy, Dharmarao, and Rangaswamy Iyer, along with other students and staff, all of whom were drawn into the mystery surrounding the mysterious gunshot. The night of October 15th, 1919 is thick with humidity. A warm breeze stirs the trees on Newington College grounds, but it does little to break the heavy stillness. The corridors are unusually quiet. There's a tension in the air, something unspoken but undeniable. Clement De La Haye returns late from the club. As always, he makes his rounds, moving through the dormitories with practiced precision. His polished shoes tap against the wooden floor, the sound sharp in the silence. Oil lamps flicker along the halls, their dim light stretching his shadow across the walls. He glances into rooms, checking that students are asleep, ensuring attendants remain at their posts. And inside their quarters, Dorothy De La Haye, his wife, is already in bed, their infant son sleeping beside her. Clement removes his waistcoat, sets his papers aside, and exhales. Though his mind is far from settled, tension has been brewing at the school all week. The princely wards have been a menace to deal with that week, and two students in particular, Kadambur and Singampatti, have been restless, their resentment barely concealed. He has tried to tighten the discipline and make example out of those who step out of line, and it reached the point that he hurled racial slurs at some of the students, all in order to show them their place. But whispers of dissent reach him, which he tries to dismiss all too hard. He has seen rebellion before and he knows how to crush it. Outside, the school grounds lie in eerie stillness too. Most students are asleep, but near the tennis court, a few remain awake, their voices low, cautious. The night carries only the occasional sound, the creak of an old tree, the rustling of the leaves, the tick-tock of the clock in the main hall, and then a gunshot. The sharp crack splits the night. Dorothy jerks awake, her breath catching. The acrid scent of gunpowder fills the room. Remember, it's 1919. Guns still required gunpowder. For a second, she is frozen. Then she turns and sees Clement is slumped beside her, his head tilted unnaturally, blood spreading fast across the sheets. The mosquito net around their bed hangs torn, a charred hole marking where the bullet passed through. And then a second sound, a dull, heavy thud outside the window. And now Dorothy screams. Footsteps thunder down the corridor. The door bursts open. Punaswamy, the school's attendant, rushes in, followed by students, among them Kadambur and Singampatti. They stop, eyes widening as they take in the scene. Clement's body, the blood, Dorothy clutching their child, shaking, her face drained of colour. Outside, lanterns flare to life as the search begins. Attendants and students scour the ground beneath the principal's quarters. If not the killer, where is the weapon that killed the headmaster? Near the porch, they find it. A 12-bore shotgun, the kind used in school sporting events. One chamber fired, the other still loaded. The gun had been locked away in the sports equipment room near Kadambur's quarters. Too easy to take. Too easy to use. Someone planned this, and now the hunt for the killer begins.
Aryaan, so they're in bed together, right? De La Haye and his wife.
Yeah.
She's sleeping right next to him.
I know what you're going to ask.
He gets shot.
Yeah.
And she's awoken from the sound of the gunshot, I'm assuming. And the moment her eyes open from the sound, there's no one in the room.
That's what I thought while I was researching, you know?
That's so odd.
It's not a sniper. It's not even a handgun. Not that I know anything about guns. It's a shotgun. You need to be in very close range in order to eliminate the target. Because if you're shooting from afar, it just sprays open. It could have hit anybody.
Yeah.
So that's one. I was very surprised that she didn't see anybody. And she was conscious long enough to hear the second thud which came moments later, which was outside the window. But the aspersions you're casting, that I also felt, were eventually suspect by the police and the administrators also.
That's not where I was going with that.
Oh no, but that's where...
In my mind, there was some theory, like her eyes hadn't quite adjusted. She saw a figure in the dark.
There is more to come.
Okay.
The moment the police arrive, Newington College is thrown into chaos. Officers from the Madras police, led by Inspector Edward Hastings, take immediate control. They cordon off the principal's quarters, keeping students and attendants at a distance. Dorothy De La Haye, still in shock, is escorted to another room. She trembles as she recounts what happened. Their infant son, now in the care of a nurse, sleeps, blissfully unaware of the bloodshed that shattered their home. Investigators comb through the room. The gunshot came from close range. It's a shotgun. The charred hole in the mosquito net confirms it. A 12-bore shotgun blast. A spent shell casing lies near the foot of the bed. The balcony doors stand open. Did the killer enter through them? Did they escape that way? The thud Dorothy heard outside is now a crucial clue. Did the murderer jump? Or did something else fall? Next, the police storm the school, rousing everyone from their sleeps. Attendants, guards, and students are herded into the courtyard, their breath visible in the cold night air. Whispers ripple through the crowd. Who pulled the trigger? Kadambur and Singampatti are the first suspects. Pulled aside, they stand stiff as police officers fire questions at them. But they deny everything. Their dormitories are searched, every trunk, every drawer turned inside out, but nothing incriminating surfaces. And while this happens, rumors spread like wildfire. After all, India is India. Some students recall hearing a heated argument between De La Haye and a ward just few days before. Others swear that they heard a door creak open moments before the fatal shot. A few mutter that Kadambur had easy access to the sporting goods room where the shotgun was stored. Outside, officers study the discarded weapon. It's the school's own gun, but it should have been locked away. When they search the storage room, the truth is undeniable. The lock has been tampered with. This wasn't an accident. Someone had planned every detail. By morning, forensic experts test the gunpowder residue. It matches the type used in Newington College's shooting practice. But there's a problem. No fingerprints. The weapon offers no clear answers. Only more questions. The real killer is still among them. By dawn, the murder is the only topic of conversation in Madras. In coffee houses and railway stations, on trams and street corners, people whisper about the shocking events at Newington College. The city, already a cauldron of political unrest and colonial tensions, now finds itself consumed by a scandal unlike ever before. Newspapers seize upon the story with sensational fervor. The Hindu, Madras Mail, and the Times of India flood their morning editions with bold headlines. Quote, the Newington scandal, a headmaster murdered in cold blood. Quote, the Kadambur murder, who pulled the trigger? Quote, the De La Haye case, a tragedy of discipline and defiance. Speculation runs wild. Some columnists suggest that it was an assassination, a plot by nationalist factions against a rigid British administrator. Others insist it was a crime of passion, hinting at whispered scandals like Aishwarya kind of hinted at, involving Dorothy De La Haye herself. Yet others believe it to be nothing more than a student rebellion gone too far, the violent culmination of months of resentment and suppressed anger. At Newington College, life as it was ceases to exist. Students are no longer bound by the usual routines of morning drills, mathematics lessons, and Latin recitations. Instead, they huddle in nervous clusters, their conversations hushed but urgent. Fear spreads. Who will be blamed? Who will be arrested next? The police leave nothing to chance. No one is above suspicion. From the first light of dawn, Inspector Edward Hastings orders a relentless series of interrogations. Every student, every teacher, every member of the household staff is questioned. Some gently, some harshly, but all persistently. Dorothy De La Haye is among the first to be interrogated. She sits pale-faced and trembling, her hands clasped tightly on her lap as she recounts the horror of the night before. Her voice is thin and unsteady, her eyes darting toward the door as if she's fearing something might walk in any moment. Quote, I heard the gunshot. It was deafening. I woke up and I saw him. Clement, he was just lying there, motionless. End quote. The police take careful note of her expressions. Is it just grief or something more? Fear, guilt, something left unsaid. Now testimonies flood in from other witnesses, and they are tangled and contradictory. Some claim to have overheard an argument that night. Others swear they saw shadowy figures slipping through the corridors long before the fatal shot rang out. A single jittery student finally breaks, whispering that he had overheard talk of harming De La Haye just days before the murder. And two names surface again and again, Kadambur and Singh, both from powerful royal families, both publicly humiliated by De La Haye in the days leading up to his death. The connection is impossible to ignore. Had the headmaster's relentless discipline pushed them too far? The officers press harder, but both boys hold their ground. Their words are careful, deliberate, too careful almost. And then a breakthrough. A junior officer in the Madras police tasked with searching the dormitories stumbles upon something hidden between the pages of a Latin textbook. A crumpled, hastily concealed letter. The ink is smudged, the handwriting rushed, but its message is unmistakable. Quote, he cannot be allowed to continue like this. Someone must stop him before it's too late. End quote. The letter is traced to the two students in question. Under relentless questioning, one of them finally shatters. His voice is barely audible, but his words strike like a dagger. Quote, he deserved it. You don't understand what he put us through. End quote. The confession confirms what the police have feared all along. This was no crime of passion, no reckless accident. This was murder, cold, calculated, and planned. But the truth is still tangled in the shadows. The real question remains, who held the gun? The police swiftly conclude that the murder was orchestrated by Kadambur and Singh. Both are taken into custody, and their arrests igniting a media firestorm. Newspapers print lurid headlines, each report more sensational than the last. Some claim Kadambur confessed outright, driven by fury after De La Haye allegedly hurled a racial slur at him. Others whisper of a guilty conscience, of a letter sent to his mother, pleading for her to offer De La Haye's widow rupees 10,000 in compensation. The most chilling rumor suggests Kadambur turned De La Haye's body over for a clearer shot before he shot him. The co-conspirator in this case was Singh, and his influential father pulled every string he could, desperate to secure his son's freedom. He hired the formidable T. Richmond, a lawyer renowned for his razor-sharp defense strategies. Just days later, Singh turned approver, shifting all blame onto Kadambur. His calculated betrayal secured him a conditional pardon, leading Kadambur to face the trial alone. Now, S. Swaminathan, a brilliant criminal lawyer from Madras, stepped into the fray, flanked by the equally formidable Ethiraj. Outraged by the media's skewed narrative, they launch an offensive, challenging its inaccuracies. They submit an affidavit, exposing the press's bias. With European pressure looming large over the Madras court, Swaminathan takes a drastic step. He appeals directly to the Governor-General demanding a fair trial. Madras is a heated place for justice. And surprisingly, the plea is granted and the case is moved to Bombay, where Chief Justice Norman MacLeod himself presided over the case, his very presence adding gravity to the proceedings. If you don't know, he was one of the most famous judges of pre-independence India. Now, Dorothy De La Haye, the murdered headmaster's widow, is granted permission to leave India before the trial even begins. Officially, she cites concerns for her safety and declining mental health. but whispers circulate. Like Aishwarya said, what did she know? What did she see? And why was she so hastily sent away? But before she goes, she has to give her testimony. We found archival court records that have it. On October 20th, the widow took the stand before the Bombay court. Quote, I went to bed at 9:30 p.m. My husband, a sound sleeper, dozed off first. A sudden deafening noise jolted me awake. I called his name. No response. Then, something heavy crashed outside. I turned. The curtain was smouldering. The fire spread, casting a glow across the room. I saw him then. I knew what had happened. I screamed. Berikai rushed in, followed by Chundi, then Singampatti, Kadambur, and Saptur appeared. Kadambur stood in his veshti, or vest, hands behind his back, staring. Singampatti, wrapped up to his throat, looked unnatural, almost frightened. End quote. Her account sends a chilling ripple through the courtroom. Yet under scrutiny, her recollection shifts. Details blur. Did she truly see Kadambur and Singampatti, or had fear and grief destroyed her memory? The defense seizes upon the inconsistencies, planting doubt in the jurors' minds. The prosecution's case was strong. Thalanvan Kotai, another student, testified that on the evening before the murder, Kadambur and Singampatti conspired to kill De La Haye. Kadambur, seething over De La Haye's ridicule, swore vengeance. He would shoot De La Haye dead and anyone who dared intervene. Thalavan Kotai overheard their sinister plan and informed Chundu and Berikai, with Urquhart Jr. also present. These are all students. But fear of Kadambur silenced them all, since they were also threatened to be murdered in the process, according to their testimonies. At 9:30 p.m., Thalanvan Kotai saw Singampatti and Kadambur slipping into Singampatti's bathroom carrying 2 guns and a stash of cartridges. Moments later, a gunshot shattered the night. A groggy Berikai, half awake on his cot, saw Singampatti and Kadambur racing upstairs, panic etched on their faces, and the investigation unearthed damning evidence of this kind again and again through the trial. Multiple witnesses claimed that the plot was hatched in the billiards room. Berikai testified that Singampatti had hurled his gun from the 3rd floor, explaining the second thud sound, but a forensic expert shattered this account. The gun discovered in the yard the next day showed no damage, proof that the weapon had been staged to fit a fabricated story. Throughout this trial, Singampatti's silence was deafening. After all, he had turned approver, shifted sides, become a snitch. His confession painted Kadambur as the mastermind. He claimed Kadambur had forced him to stand guard at De La Haye's door, ready to kill any intruders. With cartridges in their pockets, they crept toward the De La Haye room. Kadambur fired the fatal shot, and then they ran, disposing of the guns before the authorities arrived. Yet cracks in Singampatti's testimony soon appeared too. He insisted he never came downstairs until the police arrived. But remember, Dorothy De La Haye swore she had seen him just after the murder. Singampatti wavered, then claimed she was mistaken. He also revealed that Kadambur acted quickly out of fear that their plot had been overheard. Urquhart Sr., he claimed, had known of the murder in advance and approved. And so the testimonies, like I said, are convoluted, each contradicting the other. Now, defense attorney Vadya was relentless. His cross-examination tore through the prosecution's case, exposing the half-truths and the contradictions and hidden agendas. He unveiled Tamil letters exchanged between Kadambur and Singampatti, letters that hinted at a setup. The lawyer argued that Singampatti Sr., Singampatti's father, had orchestrated the entire scheme, ensuring his son walked free while Kadambur took the fall. Vadya also turned the spotlight on Urquhart's dad, Urquhart Sr., who had ties to the powerful Ramnad Raja, hinting at a deeper conspiracy. Was the Raja behind the murder? Had De La Haye's opposition to home rule sealed his fate? Or was it personal? Had De La Haye insulted the Raja? Theories swirled, even whispers of scandal between Dorothy De La Haye and Urquhart Sr. cast a shadow over the trial. Her sudden departure and refusal to return only fueled speculation. Methodically, Vadya dismantled the case. You see, he did not need to prove his client didn't do it. He just had to prove other theories were also as likely. He suggested that Urquhart and Singampatti plotted the murder, with Singampatti as the real shooter. He used Chundi's testimony. Chundi claimed that he had spotted a tall, curly-haired figure carrying a gun up the stairs, matching Singampatti, not Kadambur. Vadya exposed the witness's deceit. Berikai's claim that he had seen Singampatti and Kadambur fleeing crumbled under the scrutiny, because he was without his glasses and in near darkness he could not have seen anything clearly. Witnesses had grudges against Kadambur for exposing their past misdeeds, and one by one their testimonies unraveled. Finally, Justice Norman MacLeod delivered a sharp, incisive, and surprising summary. The jury deliberated, cutting through the tangled web of lies, and their verdict: acquittal for everyone. Kadambur walked free, and so did the rest. In British India, for no Indian to be found guilty of the murder of a British administrator was surprising. The true architects of the crime remained in the shadows, their secrets buried, until today. With De La Haye dead and Kadambur acquitted, Newington College's fate was sealed. The scandal left an indelible mark on the institution, tarnishing its reputation beyond repair. Enrollment plummeted, families withdrew their sons, and the British administrators lost faith in its ability to maintain order. By the early 1920s, the gates of Newington College closed for good. Its grand halls left to decay, its once pristine fields overgrown with weeds. The buildings, once filled with the laughter and discipline of aristocratic heirs, became empty echoes of a failed imperial experiment. Dorothy De La Haye left India, never to return. Rumours surrounded her departure, and some claimed she had known more than she had let on. Others whispered about her alleged relationships with the students itself. The mystery surrounding her character became as infamous as the murder itself. As for Kadambur and Singampatti, they returned to their respective estates, but the weight of the case followed them. For years, whispers of their involvement haunted their legacies, casting shadows over their noble lineage. But for the racist headmaster, his ghost will never know who truly killed him.
If you like what we do here at Desi Studios and absolutely love what we're wearing today, this is merch you can go buy all for yourself.
You can buy this Desi Crime merch in our YouTube store on the link down below at Karak Merch. Keep the engines at Desi Studios rolling so we can pay our videographer right behind the camera to make these amazing episodes just for you.